So the intervention and the civil war came. I'm not going to give you the details of this event in the Russian history, but this is the territory which the Bolsheviks controlled. You can see it by stages, and the minimum that the Bolsheviks controlled was this dark red territory in the middle. They had to fight the better armed and more competent white guards and foreign armies. Both sides committed incredible atrocities against one another. There were also multiple gangs operating throughout the whole territory of the former Russian Empire. So the struggle was bitter, and terror was the weapon of choice. These are the victims of white guards, of white terror in Novosibirsk. Quite horrible. This was not an exception. This is a victim of Red Terror and a Polish officer tortured by the Red Army. Red Terror was actually an official policy introduced when there was an attempt on the life of Lenin. Civil war is a dreadful event in the history of any country. In Russia, it was particularly cruel. It is difficult to count how many victims it took, but different historians assess the number of victims at about 3 million to 8 million. The gap is too big, but it is impossible to give you numbers that would be more exact. Now, 2 million people left the country, but perhaps the most horrifying outcome of the civil war was that the population was dehumanized. Human life cost nothing. And this trauma remained for a very long time. Another result of the war was famine, and it was a direct result of the military action. In this famine, 5 million people died. Look at this picture. This girl is going to die, and maybe the other baby as well, and maybe the women too. The number of victims would have been bigger if it were not for the American Quakers. To Lenin's credit, he allowed them to operate in the territory of Soviet Russia, and they really helped. The Red Army, despite being inexperienced, despite the fact that there were very few officers worthy of the name, won the civil war. You can see now the evacuation of the White Guards from the Crimea, but actually you could see similar scenes everywhere where the White Guards or the foreign armies retreated. The civilians tried to get on the ships, the civilians tried to get on the trains with them. Now, why and how did it happen that the Bolshevik army won the war? One important thing was that they occupied the center of the country. Moscow and Petrograd were two capitals, and while they were sitting in the two capitals, there was a feeling that they are still the correct government. White armies, and there were several of them, had a particular weakness. They consisted mostly of officers, and officers competed for ranks, and they did not have enough men. But ultimately, what it meant that despite the fact that many peasants fought for the whites, despite the fact that many peasants rose against the Bolshevik power, despite the fact that many peasants organized their own independent communities or their own independent, say, Cossack republics or something like that, they ultimately preferred the new order to the old order. They did not want the return of the old order, which was in their minds associated exactly with the White Guards, with the old officers. And they did not want that.